Today, we are going to be talking all about data. Data is nothing if you don't action it. And so I was really excited to have JJ Reynolds on today to talk all about that. JJ, welcome to the pod.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Jordan.
So JJ, tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is JJ Reynolds, and I'm the founder, owner over at Vision Labs. And so we are a data agency, and I manage the team over there, kind of run the overarching strategy and steps. And we manage the data for our clients doing 7, 8, 9 figures.
Awesome. So what does a data agency even do? And who do you work with?
Yeah, so we work with all types of businesses and verticals. We work with mostly marketing data. So just to narrow it down a little bit is like, how are we acquiring customers? What's the best way to report on this? And how do we take the best action as far as what we're doing with all these numbers? Because our kind of internal saying is that a number is useless unless you act on it. So you really want to make sure that you know what you're doing with it. And so we work with companies usually doing at least 10 million, and we work with kind of lead gen, e-com, and SaaS.
Awesome. So what's the very first thing that you do when you come into a company and start to look at the data?
The first thing that we do is we map out your intended journeys. And what I mean by that is like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do from a user level? And we try to map that with the outcomes that you're seeing. So when we say, hey, you are running ads to these custom landing pages for this particular product, for this thing, and there's an upsell that does X, and the follow-up emails that do A, B, and C, that you're trying to get them into this bundle thing that then goes into something else. And so what we're trying to do with that is our marketing muscle has built this system, for better or worse, and then we layer that onto the data of saying what is actually happening at those steps. And we try to say, okay, we've got a question. What information do we need to take the best action? And we try to then create this cycle where you can ask a question, gather the information, and act without having this analysis paralysis that is so common. And so everyone wants to talk about attribution models and what's the best, but usually it's brought 85, 90% of the time. If you look at your last click attribution and your first click attribution, the majority of the way there in being able to act and do something.
Awesome. That's great. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see companies making when you start to look at their data and the way that they're using their data?
Usually what's happening is they have 10 different Google Sheets that are all being filled by somebody. And someone's pulling a number from something that was established by a process from 2 people ago. And you ask someone, where's this number coming from? And they're like, oh, I do this thing and run this calculation. And what we try to do is we try to centralize all of that into a true warehouse. And then we build reporting from that is centralized so everybody can look at the same thing and knows what to look at for their actions. And that's honestly a huge win for most companies, is having a centralized place to look.
Interesting. What kind of data warehouse are you talking about?
Yeah, we will use BigQuery. It's basically just Google Sheet on crack. Try to put all of the information there for the brands. And then you're kind of being able to ask these bespoke questions on top of that. And so it creates this centralized location instead of everyone having Google Sheets on Google Sheets. And a little teaser of the advanced things is that once you kind of have that centralized location, you can actually push custom audiences back into ad platforms and back into your email platforms. So you can design custom cohorts of people that you want to engage with that are built with intention. And so you can sync that back, and now you have something to really do with the data is doing by itself without you even looking at it. It's just doing it on its own.
Yeah. So now we've got a source of where the data is. What's the source of truth? And then why does the data even matter? Like, how do we act on it and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, the thing that you really have to do when you are talking about data and hypotheses and everything else is, what are you expecting to happen and what actually happens? And so I'll give you a very tactical example, right? So you've got a custom landing page, and we have Google ads, we've got Facebook ads, we've got all the major culprits going to this landing page. And they saw the page, 20 seconds on the page. Maybe they saw the pricing. They then added to cart. They then began the checkout, the normal kind of e-commerce steps. And so in doing that, you now build out default optimization points without a shadow of a doubt, where you can optimize your funnels of acquiring customers. And that's in the front end. So we kind of break things up into saying that there's a front end and a back end of your data. The front end is acquiring those customers, your website and things like that.
Yeah.
On the back end, you then have the things like, how are we doing as far as acquiring new customers? Our MER, as far as marketing efficiency ratio of, are we getting new customers efficiently? And are we matching our kind of average order value with our maybe 30-day, 90-day LTV? Like, what's that relationship there?
Yeah.
And so then you start having these questions. What action am I going to take before I give you the answer? And that's something that we really bring to the table here. You have to understand what that metric is going to do once you know the answer. So we do a lot of forecasting with clients. And so that's a lot of the stuff.
How do you deal with multi-touch attribution? And how do you tease out incrementality?
Yeah. So the incrementality question and multi-touch question can be really complicated. And there is no mastery solution. The solution is doing what you've done, right? Like, let's turn this off and see what happens immediately and then in with overtime. If you have a brand that has no SEO, you barely rank for your name type of thing, or a smaller brand, there might be the case where you have to bid on these kind of broader things that are just people you should rank for normally. So it is a case by case basis. There is not one click solution total thing, but with the right strategy, asking the right questions, kind of what you're doing there, you can start cutting spend and increasing your spend and where it is working and making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. One interesting thing I've noticed with software companies, especially with generic names, is that you do not rank for your name hardly ever, especially if you have a generic name. And so like those are the times to start bidding on these keywords. And there's no data that's telling me that. There's just common sense of like, if your SEO is poor, you must bid on your branded keywords. And
no, totally. I think that's definitely a case where you have these brands that do bid very heavily on their keywords. And then you end up with spending all this money because you might drive a lot of volume, but then not a lot of actual growth that wouldn't have happened otherwise, especially when you have decent SEO and you're not just starting from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely.